Hey, we're Kat and Nat, and we are here with Duncan Embry to have a conversation about, well, why don't we get you to introduce yourselves? Because we know who you are, but for those who don't, who are you?
I'm a lawyer. I've done basically personal injury and medical negligence cases for the last 30 years, focusing mainly on pediatric neuroscience. So I represent families and brain injured children in the system, and that sort of developed and morphed into where we're going now.
Wow. You're doing something so fascinating right now and so relevant to us because we have 7 children between the two of us. You're leading one of Canada's most high-profile legal battles, a mass tort action against social media giants on behalf of Ontario school boards. What inspired the case and why is it important right now?
So what inspired the case partly is my background in terms of, as I say, doing pediatric neuroscience. And that's what this case is really all about at its foundation. The other thing that inspired this case is personal. I have kids. My kids luckily got through this, but not without some struggles. In fact, my daughter attempted suicide. I'm not going to say it was solely as a result of what she saw on social media, but what I will say is social media played a role in that. And that got me very concerned, as one would anticipate. And so I did some digging into what was actually going on and what these algorithms worked like. And that led me and led us as a firm to this place where we talked to the school boards about the problems they were facing and seeing in the classroom as a result of social media, essentially addiction, over compulsive use in young children, and what it was doing to their brains. And that was the impetus behind this claim.
Oh my gosh, listening to him answer that question, I'm like, we need him on our podcast because we talk about this all the time. We have kids ages 9 to 16, and this is our world, and everyone's so scared about what's going to happen and what's happening. And I remember at the beginning of this year, we kind of thought that there was going to be a rule that there wasn't going to be any phones in the school, and it was going to be, it was just going to be great. We thought everything was going to be, fixed, and we're watching and kids are still constantly on their phones.
And this is part of the problem, right? I mean, a ban during school hours is a good thing if you could police it, although at what cost, et cetera.
Yeah.
But even that's not going to solve this problem because let's back this up. What we're talking about is an addictive product, one of the most addictive products ever created. In fact, TikTok's own internal data show that it takes less than 35 minutes to become essentially addicted to TikTok. That should cause any parent to pause and say, wait a second, what are we doing? What are we putting in our kids' hands? And what's the effect of it long term?
And do you feel like parents are still educated and underprepared for any of these conversations? Like, I just have no idea what's going on.
I think they are. I think one of the driving factors of starting this claim was hoping that would increase the conversation around this issue and the education around the issue. And I think it has to some extent, as have some other initiatives that have been done. But I think there's still a real misunderstanding or lack of understanding around this problem and what these products are and what they do.
And I think parents really feel helpless because there's so much information coming at them, and they want to do their best. Every parent wants to do their best, but there's too much out there.
It's hard to parent what you don't know. So it's a world that we're not living in.
Because we didn't grow up with it.
We didn't grow up with it. And one of the examples I use to people, when you think about it, imagine if a stranger knocked at your door and said, hey, do you mind if I go into your 12-year-old daughter's room and just shut the door and have a conversation with her? There's not a parent in the world who wouldn't say, get off my porch. Yet, that's what we all did. We gave our kids phones, they're in their room, and it's unpoliced, and what they're seeing and what the algorithm is designed to feed them is negative content.
Yeah, that exact quote right there. Every parent would be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was that dangerous. Or a lot of them don't know it's that dangerous.
Yeah. And what parents don't know, and I'm just going off topic for 1 second, is that even though you can take it off their phone, they go on Safari. You can get every social media app via www. So they're going to school with computers that are needed and accessing the apps, which my teenager and every teenager will tell you when they get down to it is, because we're like, your screen time. And then it's, on my computer. So there's really no workarounds. It's not just the cell phone. It's the apps as a whole that we need to start working to understand better.
Yeah, they've shown that they're not going to regulate themselves.
Right, of course.
And so far
We
the
can't
government,
as adults.
right?
How are we going to as children? It's crazy.
It is crazy. And we've also been very slow in terms of getting legislation and regulation around these products. It exists in Europe, it exists in Australia. It hasn't been passed in the US, and it has not been passed in Canada. And that, again, should cause us all to pause and say, wait a second, we know there's a danger here. We see what's happening, and we're doing not enough to protect our kids.
Why are we behind other countries?
That's a great question. It's a lack of understanding and political will to get there. There was a bill created by the previous Liberal government that didn't get through before the government fell. Whether that will be revived, I hope it will, because I do think we need regulation, but we also need to help our educators, because they're facing this on the ground in the classroom alone,
No support.
with no support in a very difficult way. In fact, in many difficult ways. One of the things we hear from teachers is they're spending a lot of their time just dealing with disinformation, right? Kids coming to school with a complete wrong idea of what the world is about. And that's not part of the curriculum. The teachers aren't trained, but they have to deal with it.
Oh my gosh, it's so true.
And how about when they come off the social media apps, getting them to re-engage with the conversation that isn't
And focus for more than 5 seconds.
right? It's like literally 8 seconds now. It's them just even trying to get them to come back into the world of hearing them and getting them focused, which can spend, I think coaches on teams are spending about 30 minutes just getting them to recalibrate from coming off social media.
It's crazy, right? I mean, the latest stats say that our kids' attention level is now less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Isn't it 8 seconds? It's shorter than it's shorter than a goldfish.
8 seconds is a TikTok reel.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that number stands out, right?
Yeah.
Listen, I've talked to educators who, I don't know if you guys remember high school. I have faint memories of it. But the core reading in grade 11 or grade 12 English, they're now reading the books to the kids. Not because they don't know how to read. Of course they know how to read. They don't have the attention span to read.
Yes.
What are you hoping comes from, I mean, we touched on it, but what are you hoping comes from this lawsuit?
Change, really. If I boiled it down to a single word, change. First of all, get the supports and services into our schools that they need to help them to get the curriculum back to where it needs to be, get our kids back in a world where they can be educated in a way that they need to be. But second of all, create change in these algorithmic designs, force these companies through these actions to change the way they do things. And I want to be clear, it's not that we're saying social media has no place in the world and it's a terrible product.
Right.
That's not true. There is benefits to it, but there's an algorithmic design around it that doesn't need to be the way it is. It's profit driven. They would still do, I'm sure, just fine economically if they created a safer product. And we need, as not just us as lawyers and through this case and our schools, but as parents and as a community, we need to say to them, you need to change this in a way that protects our kids.
When you say you want to get supports in the system, what does that mean?
If I had to rank them, I'd say first, mental health supports in the schools. We are facing essentially a mental health crisis in our young people. And the number of unmet needs that, based on the latest surveys out of CAMH and other places, the number of unmet needs is growing exponentially. We need those supports. And we need those supports in the school system. And I'll tell you why we need them in the school system. I talked to a gentleman named Alex Munter, who was the former CEO of the Children's Hospital Eastern Ontario. He's now the president of the Canadian Medical Association. And what he told me is their eating disorder clinic at CHEO has expanded threefold in the course of the last 4 years. And they don't have enough beds. They're turning people away.
Yes.
And when we got talking about how we prevent that from happening, it was Dr. Munter who said to me, it has to come through the schools. Because if we can't get the mental health supports, that's, first of all, where kids spend most of their time, of course. And if we can't get the supports there, they're going to be in the system. And A, the system can't support that, but B, we don't want our kids getting to that level.
Yeah.
And we can prevent that.
You're speaking like such a core topic for us because we have 3 daughters and 4 sons, and even the misogyny that goes on online for the boys now is rising at an insane level. So they're getting messages that they don't need to be hearing, like you said, that could be muted or it doesn't need to be online when they're that young, and they don't need to hear these voices. And we are trying to educate parents that we need to parent in this world. So as parents, we also have to help take action, and that really is what this lawsuit should also do, is help parents understand this has to be more than just a lawsuit. It has to be schools, because schools can't do it on their own, because they also don't have enough support without us helping.
I think that's exactly right. And one of the things we've been talking to our school board clients about is getting that message out to their community about why we're doing this, why they're engaged in this fight, and what role parents can play, and why it's so important for their kids. And, it's interesting. When we first started these claims, I was fascinated by the comment section. The media was covering the fact that the claims were issued, but the comments were by and large negative. They were in terms of people writing in saying this is the parents' responsibility, etc. And that's changed over the course of a year very dramatically. And I think for good reason, because people are starting to understand parents don't have the tools to deal with this.
No,
they don't.
I like to think I'm a fairly educated parent, but I fell into this trap.
Right.
My daughters had these devices. They had them in their bedrooms, and I didn't clue in what was actually happening.
Yeah.
You're not alone. And I think most parents just feel overwhelmed because they don't know. And that's really what that conversation is, right?
How long has the case been going on, and when's it going to be done?
That's a great question. So it's been going on. We first issued in end of March, I think, or April of 2024. Okay. So a year ago, just over a year ago now. We were in court in February on the defendants brought a motion to strike the claims because they said that they couldn't owe duties of care to school boards. They lost that motion. They're now seeking leave to appeal that. So much in terms of the timing will depend on what the courts do with that appeal. Assuming we are successful and they are not, and that decision is upheld, we will be moving forward as expeditious as we can through the discovery process and seeking to impanel juries to try these cases if that's what's necessary.
Well, I really hope that our kids will still be in school to see the change.
Well, it would be helpful as a parent too to learn and watch this, right? It's helpful because then we all are on the same page, and everyone should be on the same page.
Again, one of the sort of driving forces behind this. A few years ago, or a number of years ago now in England had lots of coal-fired energy plants, and they had plans to build 3 more coal-burning plants. And a group of activists vandalized a plant and got caught on purpose. The reasoning being they got charged and they went to trial and they had a jury trial, and they used that trial to demonstrate why coal was so bad. At the end of that trial, those 3 plants that were on the books were shelved, and all of the coal-fired plants in England are now gone.
Wow.
That's what litigation can do. That's what the public spotlight of a jury trial can do, because it allows us to present the evidence, to allow parents and the community to see what's actually happening and how it can be made safer.
Oh my gosh, I'm like, how can we help? How can we follow along with everything that's happening?
We have
Is it in the news?
It is in the news.
It was huge. It was huge.
Like, consistently follow.
And there is a website, Schools for Social Media Change, that has updates in terms of where things are and where they're going. You can certainly reach out to us as well. We're happy to provide updates as we go. We view this as essentially as a community project. We're doing this for the greater good of our community and for the good of our schools and our students. And I can't imagine anything that is more important than that, and something I'm more impassioned to be involved in.
You've said it's one of the most complex cases you've ever led. What are the unique challenges in litigating against some of the world's most powerful tech companies? And that has never meant so much than probably this moment in time right now.
One of the unique challenges is, and I mentioned they brought this motion to strike the claims, there has never been a claim up until now where the schools have been found to be owed a duty of care by any third party other than one they contracted with. So in that sense, what we're seeking is what's called a novel duty of care. We're saying, based on existing law, what we look at as traditional duties of care should be expanded given the digital world in which we operate. So that adds some complexity to what we're doing. But I think, we're on the right side of that, as the court have already found. One of the things I always said to school boards when I met with them is, because they asked that question, how could we possibly litigate against companies who have more money than most nation states?
Especially when it's one person who could hire 50. Like, it's not, it's not a company that you have to go against. It's one person with so much money. They can hire 5,500 people.
And my answer to that is, juries are the great equalizer, because it doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account, how powerful you are. 6 people get to hear the evidence, and they get to decide impartially, objectively, based on the evidence they heard in that courtroom. They go back and deliberate, and they get to render a verdict. And that, to me, is, it's sort of in my lifeblood. It's what I've been doing for 30 years, and it's something I believe in wholeheartedly in the power of the jury system. I'm confident when the jury hears all of the evidence in this case that they will come to the conclusion that we urge upon them.
What do your children feel about social media now?
That's a great question.
I didn't know whether to ask it. I was like, I don't know whether, do they have it? Do they hate it?
I'm so glad you asked it. They are much more circumspect about how they use it and how often they use it and what they look at as a result of this case. So if nothing else, for me, it has shone a spotlight on this for my daughters. And if I got to be honest, if I had just talked to them about the evils of social media, I don't think they were listening to me on that issue. But as they read the press and as they see what we're doing and as they hear what is going on, they've become what I'd like to say are more responsible citizens around their use of social media.
Good. That's what we hope.
Well, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Every parent can say thank you.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. I feel thankful and grateful that our school boards have placed their faith and trust in me and in our firm. I can't imagine a greater honor or mantle to run with than this. And if we can create change, it's good for our kids and the future of our democratic society.
But good of it. There's nothing but good.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.